So, first of all, thank you all very much for the lovely comments on the Tourette's video from people with similar experiences to parents messaging me on social media about their children who might have Tourette's. It has been really great. It seems like I raised awareness after all, which I didn't know what to expect, but I am very glad that I made that video. In the video I asked if you wanted to hear about the autistic side to the whole thing, to which you replied yes. So here it goes. Now, unlike most autistic people, I didn't get diagnosed as a kid. I had to go through some very weird and funny experiences in order to actually start wondering why I struggle with certain things. And this is also a big reason why I'm making this video, is you might be autistic as well, without realizing. Now, this is a bit of a weird story, and I'll try to keep it short, but years ago this girl liked me, and this went on for about a year, and I had no idea, really. I didn't see any hints, I didn't get any of the signals, so this ended up with her getting quite frustrated, which I totally get, of course. And so she told me, and she was like, well, are you really that blind? Some time passed, but I kept thinking about her question and it just didn't sit right with me. So I looked it up online and I ended up reading about autism a few minutes later. I ended up doing a bunch of these tests just for fun, but I scored very high on all of them. I contacted my doctor later that week, and he suggested that I would go to this facility in order to get diagnosed. And the rest is history. Actually being able to put a name to it is quite relieving, and I've always been a little bit different to everyone, so it all just made sense after getting diagnosed. Now, every autistic person has different traits, which is why it is a spectrum, the autism spectrum. They are usually obsessed with certain topics, and most of them really do not like change, including me. Perfectionism and struggling with socializing is also usually a part of it. So here's my list of symptoms. I'm always honest. This sometimes feels more like a curse than a blessing, but unless I'm joking around, I will always be honest about everything. And this one is connected to the next one as well. Being rude without realizing it. I remember a funny example. This was years ago. I came home from work and the parents of my brother's girlfriend visited our house that day. And I just entered the house as they were leaving. So her parents were like, oh, you guys should come visit us soon. To which I replied, well, we'll see. So everyone started laughing, and it took me a couple of seconds to realize how rude that was. And even though it was fine and we were all laughing, that's a good example of being just naturally rude by accident. Taking things literal, not recognizing sarcasm or jokes, which is weird because I'm typically very sarcastic myself. I'm quite sensitive to sound, and I hear noises that others don't really hear. I'm also quite sensitive to sound, and I hear noises around me while others don't really hear it. But when there's too much happening in the background, I will just not listen to somebody. It's like when I got my first tattoo and the tattoo artist was talking while the machine was on, and it felt like I could barely hear his voice. Also, a lack of coordination and clumsiness. I am insanely clumsy. I always bump my arms and legs into wherever I go. But it's not just that. Sometimes it feels like my hands are not doing what I want them to do. And that's apparently also a symptom. Short attention span and selective focus. So this could technically be a symptom for many other disorders like ADHD, ADD, you name it. Anyway, this is why I almost failed my high school exams twice. My mind just wanders off to another world, basically. And I always have ideas in my head, which is not ideal if you have to focus on something. However, hyperfocus exists. When I'm writing music, I can work on a song for hours and hours on end without ever getting distracted. Also, repetitive movements. This could be anything really. For me, it's rocking back and forth. I don't know how to explain this, but it just feels very good. It's extremely comfortable for me for some reason. Now, I'm not saying that Maynard is autistic, although he's pretty weird, but I'm sure that his rocking forth and back has some sort of meaning, as it is such a relaxing thing to do. I mentioned it before, but perfectionism is a big one. I have learned to be more flexible and open to imperfections, and I think that Leo Base Covers has a lot to do with it. I remember spending like 10 hours trying to edit my first cover. I hardly edit anything these days. Sure, I became better at recording, but I also know that most people don't mind a recording where you can hear a slight fret buzz or whatever. Planning things very carefully and way ahead of time, asking lots and lots of questions before doing something I'm unfamiliar with. If you've seen Atypical on Netflix, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. When I started my first job in the supermarket, I asked like a million questions because I thought I would have to be on top of everything. At some point I even asked a question about how to deal with foreigners and a language barrier. Funnily enough though, one of my first customers was actually English. Avoiding eye contact is also huge. This used to be very much the case for me, but again I have learned how to hold eye contact for a little longer and end it when it gets somewhat awkward. But a lot of autistic people just will not look at you during a conversation. And the final so-called symptom, not understanding social clues. This is a tricky one because it's not always the case for me, but I can never really tell what somebody wants from me, if they actually want something from me. During a conversation, I only focus on what's being said. So while I'm processing sentences and such, I will never really think, well, what is this person really trying to say? But like I said, it's tricky because at the same time, I don't feel like this at all. When somebody is trying to scam me, for example, then I will know. Now, all these symptoms might seem like I cannot function at all, but most people don't even realize that I am autistic until I actually tell them, if I tell them. I don't like to bring it up because I feel like there's usually no need to bring it up, and I personally don't get why people get offended by the word autism. Even if it's used as an insult, it's just a word. I mean, sticks and stones, everyone, come on. But yeah, autism is horrible, and the only thing you can do is accept it. I wrote a song called Singulars, which is on my debut album, and it's a very weird song, but it's basically about autism and my take on autism. If you feel like you have these symptoms and you've always felt a little bit different, like you don't really seem to understand how normal people can do normal things without any problems, you might be autistic. But who knows, right? It's worth getting tested, and it's definitely a relief to some people, like me, for example. There's no shame in having autism, and it really doesn't have to be apparent at times, because sometimes I feel like the most normal person in the room, so everything is possible. Anyway, have a good one.